And welcome back, everyone, to the Bitcoin Business Bureau. I'm your host, as always, LitecoinLeader. Today, we're going to talk about a few different esoteric, random topics, it would seem, but I'm going to tie them all together. I'm going to talk about English Premier League, relegation, Ted Lasso, the G7 through the G20, and President Bukele and his meeting with 44 countries. How's that all tie into cryptos? Stay tuned. I'll put it all together for you coming up next. Okay, so we're going to go through a few different things here and try to tie all the random, wild thoughts in my mind into one coherent message. See how we do. So, first off, we are talking about relegation. And if you watch Ted Lasso, I'm not going to give it away, but one of the clubs in the first season was facing relegation. What does relegation mean? Well, relegation, the English, like the Premier League just finished yesterday, okay? And what happens, there are 20 teams in the top league of English soccer called the English Premier League, and they're all put in what they call like one standings board or a table. And that table lists all 20 teams from best record to worst record. And the top 6 or 7 get to the top first obviously gets to win the league. The top 4 get on to like they play in the Champions League or they play in UCL. I don't know. The UEFA League. There's all the different leagues they get to play in if they're in the top third of the table. The bottom 3, though, is what I'm talking about today, and that's relegation. The bottom 3 of the teams are the teams that are the worst teams that for the season. And what happens is they get demoted out of the league. So they have to go down one tier to the next level. So the baseball analogy would be like a Major League Baseball team going down to AAA. So imagine, let's see, who's bad? The Orioles are pretty bad right now. So let's say the Orioles or the Tigers bad? I don't know. It's been a little while since I followed too much baseball, but if the Orioles are bad, okay, the Orioles or pick any team that's basically like Tampa Bay used to do this a lot. They used to swing for the fences every 4 or 5 years and then just go down in the dumps for the next 3 or 4 to rebuild. Well, that's a process that works in the United States with Major League Baseball and often with the NBA as well, because they don't have relegation. Well, what relegation means in England is that the bottom 3 teams have to drop down a tier, fight for a year to try to get back up, and only 3 teams get promoted each year. And if they are promoted, typically they're not the strongest teams. So it's a fight to stay in there and to keep competing and to try to move up and be in the top teams in the table. So what does that have to do with the global economy? Well, I'm tying Ted Lasso and relegation in here. So here we go. So some countries are not in the Premier League. So the Premier League of the global finance is the G7, the G8, and the G20. And if you look at these countries, you can see the big players in the G7. United States, United Kingdom, Italy, Germany, France, Japan, Canada. Those are your big 7 of your global economies. They added G8 because they wanted to keep Russia in but not out. So they made a G8 that just included Russia. So now the G8 includes the first 7 plus Russia. Now G20 is when it gets interesting because now you have the BRICS nations showing up predominantly for the first time. So you have Brazil, India, China, South Africa. We're missing one. That is Russia. So now so BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Those are your BRICS nations. Those are the ones that you often hear like they're doing crypto type transactions. They're using cryptocurrency. They're using other currencies to settle global debts on the SWIFT or SIP system, which I'll talk about in my next video. But this is where they're at in the hierarchy. So you have a hierarchy of countries. So there's over 200 of them. And there's different tiers as far as where they're at in the global economy. So G7, that's your upper echelon. That is the top countries for financial decisions. They go to all the meetings. They decide a lot for the world financial system, at least the first world nations. And then it expands from there, G8, G20, and so on. Now, what happened last week is that President El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, hosted 44 countries in El Salvador to discuss Bitcoin. And there were some images that came out of that. And here's the image of the leaders' meeting that came from Twitter. And here's a brief rundown of the countries. You could see, I'll share this link, but it's a lot of countries from Africa, middle of Asia, smaller countries in Asia and Africa, and Latin America as well, and South America too. So these are all countries that are not on the G20 list. Okay, so they're meeting, and the basic message that that President Bukele and others are signaling is that, look, if you want to move up on the food chain from a third world nation to a second or first world nation, you have to go to a different system. And that system likely involves Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in some way, shape, or form. So that is why this meeting is held. And the obviously the powers that be that are in these G7 and G20 list, or at least the G7 and G8, predominantly G7, don't want to change. They're at the top. They are in the Premier League. They're in the Premier League already. They don't want to get relegated. They don't want to rock the boat. They want to keep the system as it is because it works for them. But there's this represents maybe 5% of the countries on the planet. The other 95% or 90% that aren't even in the G20, they want another system so they can elevate and improve their nation. Now, these nations that were listed in the 44 that met with President Bukele in El Salvador, they're not big countries. And let me drop out of this and just talk to you for a minute. Okay, that's a little better. So now I'm back. Hey, everybody. So now you get the idea of what I was talking about, relegation and Ted Lasso and all these different countries. So you have a hierarchy. Like the Premier League, you have 20 teams, and the bottom 3 teams get dropped down, 3 come up, and so on. That's how relegation works in English Soccer League, English Premier League, and other leagues associated with it. American sports teams don't do that, but imagine if they did. Imagine if the Cubs or the Orioles or somebody else had something to play for at the end of the year, and it meant if they weren't going to be good enough, they would be a minor league team the following season. How different would sports in America be then? But there are tiers and hierarchies in many different things and industries, including global finances. So global financial tiers of countries exist for the G7, G8, G20. That's what those numbers mean and represent. But there are lots of countries who say, hey, what about us? We want to grow. We want to become a big player. And maybe not a G20 level, but we want to get in the top 50. We want to promote ourselves and get better. The current system does not encourage that because it's all geared and tilted towards the G7 and G8 and G20. So these other countries, they got to meet and they got to find an alternate system. So that's what crypto can offer to them. If you go into the world of cryptocurrency and you get in outside of the SWIFT, the SIPs, the fiat system, the central banking system, these alternative financial systems, these other alternative markets and marketplaces, that's their ability to escape the system, the legacy system that's been in the place since Bretton Woods in 1944, if not earlier. It gives them an out. It gives them a path around all that and just say, hey, how about the 44 countries that met there? We all team up and together we can combine to be maybe a G20 on our own and we become an independent group. That's a possibility. Maybe they become a League of Nations for cryptocurrency or Bitcoin. It's possible. It's conceivable. So there's major change brewing. The G7 certainly don't like it. So they're going to be looking at promoting the SWIFT system and the SIP system and other systems that keep them in power, and how to use the legacy systems and maybe the flavor of the month or year with the fiat-based CBDCs or UBI or whatever they're going to dream up next to keep them at the top of the food chain when it comes to the global financial system. So keep all that perspective in mind because it's going to be a battle. It's a battle. And as I've said many times, the third world is likely to be there before the first because there's more need. The countries that are at the bottom of the totem pole, they're hungrier. They want to ascend. They have motivation that they want to grow up and compete with the big boys. But up until now, they have not had a mechanism. But Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and other systems much like it offers them a potential playing field that might be a little bit more even. So that I just wanted to put all that together and say, what do you think? What do you think about looking at the G7, G8, G20, comparing the first world and the third world and how Bitcoin all fits in there? Because it's a major stage. I would love to hear your comments down, or read your comments down below. So leave a comment below, like, subscribe, share. Appreciate all that. And of course, check out my other videos, which I sometimes put up here, but probably not today. But there's plenty of videos that'll be on the back end of this one, and I look to you hearing from you soon. So, lots said today. I'm going to close the drawer in the bureau, say follow leader one more time, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.